There we go again with that lovely little lady's voice that says recording in progress. And I've got a special treat today for you all. A very accomplished man at that. And Fred, his name is Fred Joyal, by the way. Let me share that with you because that's very important. But upon going through your sort of your biography, your story, your list of accomplishments, I saw a lot. And I'm thinking, man, I got a lot to talk about with this guy. But we just launched a conversation just a few seconds ago about something that was kind of, I think, important, and it has a position in each of our lives. You were talking about this concept of blacking out around the idea of drinking or drugs or something. And I said, well, let's just talk about that to launch this conversation and see where it goes. Because you were mentioning about the Henry Ruggs accident and driving 100 plus miles per hour. So because we're open books here, let's start with that concept and see where it takes us, man. I think that'd be a little bit fun right there.
Yeah, and personally, I've never consumed so much that I blacked out, but I have, I recently dated someone, just, a couple of dates, and, and we drank a lot. And it's a bunch of interesting, fun things happened. She had no recollection of the last hour of them, nothing. And I thought, wow. I mean, and I could I could see she was drunk, but I didn't realize that she wasn't registering anything, and Malcolm Gladwell talks about, the curiosity of blackout drinking is the person's still functional, right? The girl seems like she's giving consent, let's say, when she has no idea. She's in a different sort of place, but she's talking, she's moving, she's not falling, she hasn't passed out like some people do. And it's a very dangerous phenomenon. And obviously, that feeling, and I don't know if I blacked out, but I've wondered how I got home a few times back when I didn't have any control over, my willingness to get behind the wheel. And so I spend an awful lot of time calculating when I'm going to be driving and when my last drink is. But the great thing, hey, what's saving more lives than Uber? Call a dang Uber. I'll pay for it, right? Right? Because all, as you said in your other podcast, all it takes is one time. You can be lucky 1,000 times and then you kill somebody and your life is over. I don't care if they put you in jail or not. You've killed somebody. You have that following you forever. Happened to a bartender I worked with. She went to a bar, got drunk. Guy tried to take the keys from her. Bartender literally reached for her keys that were on the bar, and she snatched them off the bar, got in her car, and killed 2 people.
Wow.
A mother and daughter head-on collision.
Yeah. And to that point, Fred, what I'm thinking about is the fact that just because we highlight that incident, that was the pro football player in Vegas, of course that gets national attention. But you're not hearing about all the other cases similarly that happen every day, where it's just John Smith off the side of the road. That's a grocery worker down the street. Either way, the impact is somebody's sister, mom, brother, whoever that could be, ends up losing their life. So you said something in there about the dating someone that did that. I'm curious to know because you're at this point, and now I'm thinking timeline of sort of when that was happening. Is that more recent? Was that more back in the day before you sort of became this gentleman that went out and built the biggest dentist referral company, before you went out and did big marketing and advertising for commercial on radio? Like, where in the timeline is that? And then also, how did you process it in the sense, like, why am I with this person? Or did you leave the relationship and say, hey, I'm not going to be in this relationship anymore because this is becoming a problem? What was your evaluation of that whole thing?
Okay, so it was recent and it was a first date.
Oh, wow.
So and we were having a really good time. And that this happens too. There's something that happens around the 3rd or 4th drink where now you want the next one and the next one. You're not even feeling the 4th one and you want 5 and 6. It's a really interesting phenomenon. It's like the old joke about cocaine is like, you know, that when I do cocaine, I feel like a new man. And the first thing that new man wants is another line of cocaine, right? It's almost like it's written into the code of this chemical. Do some more of me. It's not going to be a problem. You know, it's very strange. But yeah, it was surprising to me. And obviously it's will be a challenge right away. Because I'm probably old enough where I don't do it, but I can remember times where I'm drunk and then I pour myself a tumbler full of tequila and drink it straight down. It's like, no, did I really need that? I was already completely drunk. Fortunately, I was at like a party and wasn't about to get in my car, but what the heck was with that? I drank it like a glass of water. It's really, you know, obviously we could talk about this for a long time because I was a bartender and you know, and I've been around a long time, and so
let's talk about that. Let's talk about that shift out of sort of the service industry to the ladder of success in your journey, because I think that is a great turning point right there, where you maybe, and again, same sort of in alignment with what I just said. I'm always curious about timeline, because I don't like, personally, when I read stories about success, but then I'm like, golly, they don't tell you about what, you know, the first 200 days were, the first 3 years were, when they were in the grind and they were working 2 jobs and they were struggling and they were eating out of their mom's cabinet, all that stuff, right? So for you, were you bartending and thinking business? Were you bartending and then I'm like, wow, I got to get out of bartending. This is just driving me crazy. Where did sort of that positioning of life end up taking you?
I had been working in a startup and it failed, and I lived in California, and so I had to move back to Rhode Island. I had to fall back and regroup. So I got a bartending job, and I got, you know, it's good money, right? But it's also, you're stalled, right? You're not progressing in life if you're going to do that. Like in LA, the bartenders are all actors or whatever, so they got another career. The bartender is just so they can eat and have a roof over their heads. But the luckiest thing that happened to me was the owner fired me, right? Because he accused me of stealing. Now, what it was the other bartender wanted my hours, so he told the owner that I was stealing, and he had actually set me up a couple of times, sent in these customers who would try to over tip me and not pay for their drinks. And I actually told the owner about it. He fired me anyway. But if he were alive today, I'd send him $10,000 and say, thank you for firing me, because I had to start my life. And then eventually discovered the advertising business. And that was when I found my calling or whatever. I really loved writing, and I loved advertising. Was a way to make money and learn to do commercials, learn to do all of this multimedia stuff. And that was the foundation for starting 1-800-Dentist. Now, what I talk about now is boldness and the power of boldness. It's a bold move to start your own business, to quit your job and believe in yourself, or be naive enough to believe you can pull off this business, and make stuff happen. As a side note, it takes boldness to become sober. It takes boldness to say, no, I don't need another drink. Where, you know, we've all had plenty, or I've had plenty, you know, because the social pressure is tremendous. Have another one. And the bold move is to say, you know, I've had enough, and you know, and be that person, you know, that just, you know, that is your whole self, rather than somebody who conforms at their own risk, at their own peril.
Was there something in there? Yeah, very well said. Was there something in there in that process that helped you become more bold, or do you think that was more of something that you had along the way? Because some people don't have it. Some people, it feels like they come out of the gate swinging and they just got it. So for you, whether that was getting fired, having to move back, starting to dip your toe in the advertising space, was it a learned thing for you, or did you realize,
I was an incredibly shy person growing up. I couldn't ask a girl on a date. I couldn't make a phone call. That's the irony of it, is I had a business based on a phone number that was, my primary career. But I was just painfully shy, but it made me angry because I missed so many opportunities. I had so many regrets. I had relationship miss, job misses, all of these. I was stacking the regrets, and as a young man, and I would see bold people doing all of this stuff, having great life, chasing dreams, taking risks, having a darn good time. And I go like, why are they like this? And so I started to push myself into my discomfort zone, and also sort of mind the fact that the bold moves that I did make once or twice in my life changed the course of my life. A whole series of things flowed from it. And so I just kept working on it. It took me decades to build my confidence, but I'm at a point now I can walk on a stage, 5,000-10,000 people in the audience. I can't wait to get out there.
Yeah.
And I'll go out there and make a fool of myself. And I don't care. I don't care that 10% of the people think I'm an idiot, right? Because if somebody comes up to me and says, what you said, I needed to hear that more than ever. This is going to change everything for me. I want to thank you. I'll take one guy or one woman that says that. Makes all the difference. It's the same thing for you. If you do a podcast and somebody writes to you, and especially the sobriety one, and you said, you know what, this was the kick I needed. You don't need to get paid, right? The gratification is enormous. But I had to build my confidence very, very gradually by painful regrets. We go like, I am not letting that happen again. How am I going to fix it? And so what I developed was a systematic way that anyone can build their confidence and boldness really quickly in 90 days if they really want to work at it. And that's what my book is about, because you don't want to have a life of regrets. So you don't want it, and you don't want to play your life safe. Is that what you want on your tombstone? I played it as safe as possible every step of the way. We don't know how much time we are going to have, so let's live a full life. Let's tell people we love them. Let's take risks. Let's take challenges. Let's get better. Let's get good at getting feedback. All of this stuff takes boldness, and boldness is the magic. Boldness is a superpower, and you can learn it. That's the most important thing. If I can learn it, anybody can learn it.
Yeah, and I think you said it so wonderfully right there too. It's stacking the regrets. It's the same train of thought that if somebody asks me a similar question, it's like, what initiates you? And now that doesn't make us perfect. That doesn't mean that we're always making the right decisions. I still battle some of those insecurities like a normal human being, but it's really about, okay, I think I've measured, if I'm like you just said, 70, 75, 80, if I don't do this, what am I going to say to myself looking back on my life? And I'm like, I ain't okay with that, right? So it's like, I better do something now. So that being said, with your journey from advertising to business building to building a company that collectively did over $1 billion in revenue, that's a pretty impressive feat. So at what junctures during that journey were you required to pull out your boldness? And I'm sure it's a lot, but more so, like more specifics, right? It's like some of the things as a personal Fred Joyal philosophy and a business philosophy where irregardless of what was going on in the business, you had to raise up, whether that was building teams, whether that was picking up the phone, whether that was really exercising whatever you became to stay bold, right? Because I get the getting on a stage at this point. That's like, you've really worked through something, you've grown, getting on a stage, doing comedy as you do, which I saw, which is pretty incredible, is awesome. But you had, you weren't that way at the starting point, right? So
no,
facing and confronting that regularly looked like what?
It was really gradual, and I had a wingman, really. I had a really good partner in my business. And if you're lucky enough to have a complementary partner that you trust, that he or she is trust you and your abilities and acquiesces to your strengths, and you acquiesce to your weaknesses to them, and don't make money the number one priority. That was our big move. Money was not the most important thing. We wanted a great place where we were going to go to work every day. That was number one. Number two is the customer had to win along with us, because we had done jobs where we had sales jobs where the customer lost for us to make our commission, and both of us ended up quitting those jobs because it was like we were losing our soul. And so he was just a great salesperson, and he was a very social person, and he was really good at asking people questions. And I watched him and I went like, he's connecting to people because he's genuinely interested in them. And I didn't know how to behave that way. I don't know what created that, but I don't know why shyness created that part of me. But once I started to just figure out how to connect to people and be curious about them and be compassionate about what's going on in their life, I could suddenly sell better. I eventually built this reputation in the industry that surprises me. The number of people that have read my books or heard about me or seen me do lectures, or that I talked to 5 years ago and just said, try this, do this, they never forgot it. I mean, this is something that just built gradually. And that's the whole point, is I'm still building my boldness. I can walk up to anybody. They can be a billionaire. They can be a top movie star. I can walk up and talk to them and have a normal human conversation. And that's why I succeed, because I have a normal conversation with them. I don't go up to a billionaire and go like, I have a really good business idea. Could you tell me what you think about it? It's like, oh my God, you're like you get the prize for the 1 millionth person who's asked me this question, So, but it's about learning. And that's what confidence is. Confidence says, I belong everywhere. And so I don't have to get weird. I don't have to get anxious. I don't have to radiate nervousness, because I'm not. I may be energized. If I meet Tom Hanks, I'm excited to meet Tom Hanks, but I'm not going to be a psycho. And I'm not going to, ask him to sign my arm or something like that. I'm going to prepare myself and say, and this is a real incident. I saw him, and he had just produced From the Earth to the Moon. And I said to him, I got to tell you, really, really enjoying this series, From the Earth to the Moon. I wanted to thank you for that. And he goes, no, thank you. He says, it's such a labor of love for me. It's so nice to hear that somebody's appreciating it like that. Because we had a normal conversation.
Right.
And, he didn't feel like I was intruding on him or something like that. And he was just sitting there with Rita, his wife, waiting to pick up some food in Fred Siegel in Santa Monica.
Wow.
But I've done that over and over again, to the point where it becomes reflexive to be bold. I'll even do it in elevators. I'll talk to people in elevators all the time, just because nobody talks in the elevator. And I think that's crazy, right? Why not say something, and why not compliment somebody? That's my trick most of the time, is I just think of something to compliment them on. Like I'd see you and I'd say like, that beard's amazing, dude. Right. And you could just be in front of me in the Starbucks line. I'm not trying to pick you up. It's a drive-by compliment. It's a throwaway. Right. But what did I do? I made you feel better about yourself. Why not be that person? Instead of judging people all the time, why not be that person who makes somebody feel better? I do it. If I have a judgment about somebody, like I think their hairs looks really weird, or their clothes look really weird, that's what I force myself to come up with a compliment to defeat my own judgment behavior. It's like, and you know what? They glow when you do that, when you've actually singled out the thing that there's a little chancy for them to be this way. And somebody goes, and I just go like, the purple hair, it's really working. I couldn't do it, but it's working on you. It changes their day. And it changes me. Because I had to discard the judgment in order to be positive with the person. I'm ranting about this because it's like, it connects to so much we've already talked about judgments and stuff. So
there are no rants on the show at all. It's just great conversation. And that's it. Once it gets in the flow, it starts getting delivered, and then it's like, I love it because I'm learning right now. I'm thinking, man, that's great. I remember that. Okay, I need to try this again. Okay, great, fantastic. So if I know I'm learning, and I say that a lot, and I mean that means that I know other people are learning. So you said something there that I thought was sort of and I don't use this in a negative way, questionable, meaning that you said when you act bold, you use the Tom Hanks situation, looking through it. Hey, I don't. Do you think that there also is, you can be confident, which is, and there's a lot of people that are confident, but do you also think that there has to be a regulator on there, which means like emotional control and intelligence to say, hey, I'm calm, I'm confident, but I'm calm and I'm cool and I'm collected and I'm gathered, to which, like, if I'm way too confident, then it's like, I'm this esoteric, like just out there. But if I'm confident, but I'm way down here, I'm just sort of asking you what your thought process are in the middle of that. I think because there has to be some sort of regulator in there as well that helps with managing that interaction to some extent.
And I think my answer would be your personality, who you really are, is the regulator. All that boldness is doing is allowing whatever the full you is out. Okay. I am not the life of the party necessarily, right? I'm not the guy dancing on tables or doing the craziest sort of stuff that some people would say he's a show off. Some people want to be a show off. Hey, you got to be a show off to do stand up, right? You got to be half nuts, right? To walk up on stage and try to make people laugh, right? Some people, but the guys who are funny are the guys who are confident on stage. They can have average material and they will kill it because they're so dang confident up there. Because I've seen guys who are like nervous and anxious with A+ material and they bomb because they're too nervous, right? So all it does is allow you to blossom to your fullest life and achieve your dreams. When I go to a party, I don't want to meet everybody. That's not my goal. I don't want them all to know me. Some people do. There's nothing wrong with that if that's who you want to be. I want to go deep with 2, 3 people, maybe even just one. But that's what I'm there for. It's like, tell me more about what's important to you. That's the conversation I want to have with somebody. And how did you get there? What makes you that way? How are you chasing your dreams? How are you chasing your dreams? What's holding you back? If you were more confident, would you chase them more? Like what's the story you're telling yourself that keeps you from doing that? Because I know the stories I was telling myself. I don't want to be a show off. I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want people to laugh at me. I don't want this girl to turn me down. The easiest way to never be turned down asking out a girl, never ask a girl out.
Never ask her. Yeah.
It works like a dream.
Yeah.
You never get rejected, except for one thing. You're alone.
Yeah. And
there's a slight drawback.
But I absolutely agree with you there. And there's a real true wrestling match in that process, by the way. So just go there with me for a second, where it's like, okay, I want to go do that, but then going to do it, right? Like literally going to do that thing, to ask the question, to put yourself out there. From the moment you think it to the moment of doing, there's almost this open space where that's where I think people get stuck. So that also has to be thought through and almost work too. So because you're very much a student of this and you live it, you've practiced it, is there sort of another way looking backwards to solve for that in addition to it? Because sure, it's easy to say, hey, let's go practice it, just say it. Well, for most people, they don't. If it's that simple, they would go do it, but they don't. That's the truth. Because it's like, well, we get it because we've done it, we've practiced it. It's like, hey, just go do this. They're like, yeah, they like, did you? No, didn't do it. Oh, okay, well, why not? Oh, I couldn't do it. It's like, okay, so how do we solve for that little thing right there, where it's like they know to do it, but they don't do it, right? That's like the most obvious but hardest thing to do.
It's because and the steps that I use in my book to build your confidence, it's a combination of a systematic method, a step-by-step method to act boldly. Not just, and the difference between confidence and boldness is confidence is how you feel about yourself. Boldness is taking that confidence and going into action. So it is stepping in. But what I've created in the book is a series of exercises that start non-verbally and build yourself up so that you're not trying to make this leap of like, I know I'm tongue tied. That's why I can't say anything. It's like, you haven't built your boldness muscle up enough. You haven't, you're going too deep into your discomfort zone. Now, some people go like, you can just go, hey, go talk to that guy. And they go, right? And they would say it to me, and I go like, well, I can't talk to that. I would be driving along with my friend, and the two girls would smile at us in the convertible next to us, and he'd say something, and I would say nothing, right? And he would immediately start talking to them, and I couldn't close the gap because I hadn't built up. It's just like exercising. Like if you're trying to get strong, you don't start by bench pressing 250 pounds because it's just going to fall on you and break your rib cage, right? Here's the weird thing about human beings is we are great at calculating what we think the worst case scenario is, and then assigning that a feeling to it, but we're terrible at calculating the percentage of it likely to happen. And what bold people know is that 99% of the time, nothing bad will happen unless we decide to label it that way. And they never label it that way. They don't label rejection as something they need to take on. They don't label failure as anything but a step up. And all they do is they've created these neural pathways so that they can easily behave this way. It's reflexive. I have become, by doing, like talking to in an elevator to people is completely harmless. So when you do these things, when you believe it's harmless, gradually you figure out that everything's harmless, right? And you just get stronger and stronger. I went from not being able to talk to anybody to being able to talk to anybody. Did I start by talking to everybody? Just go, I think I'm going to talk to everybody. No, I started by smiling at everybody. And then I would eventually learn to just say hi to a stranger. I, say the name, everybody who's got a name tag, say their name, thank them. To start to interact, get outside of your shell, and then expand it. Push yourself into your discomfort zone, then retreat into your comfort zone to restore yourself. Don't live a life in your comfort zone. That's like saying, I want to be asleep all the time. The comfort zone is there to restore you so you can go out and live a bold life. That's where all the great stuff happens. Those are the people who make a difference. And I'm gonna take it one level. The reason you do all of this is because you want a strong enough boldness muscle to go into action when it matters, when you got to stand up to somebody or stand up for somebody. You got to sit your friend down and say, dude, you drink too much. Dude, like you're going to lose your marriage because all you can think about is meth, right? It takes boldness to be that kind of friend. But when their life is ruined, or worse, they die, what do you got? You got a regret because you should have spoken up. So you want your boldness muscle strong when it matters. When your mother or your father dies, you want to get up. You don't want to be the person, I don't speak in public, I don't really like. You want to get up and eulogize your parent or your best friend or whatever, or your favorite aunt or uncle, because you'll get one chance. And that's the whole thing. Hesitation is the opportunity killer. And sometimes there's a moment, there's a window, and it closes. And you don't want those windows closing on really important stuff.
Did you, I think what you said and articulating the data there, the percentages of, what can not work out and what would work out, I think that's so well said. And it just totally reframes the evaluation of that. And then the labeling piece of that, which ties into running a catastrophe in your mind, and that script that basically sends you south, which I understand because I've done it for a heck of a long time. I still say that I'm in this sort of rewiring my mind phase, to which I am. And so I think about how you just said that. And then I think about, can you be bold with everything you're suggesting here and still not get what you want in life? Because I think that, like, for example, I got sober. That was boldness, like you mentioned earlier. You know, I would say I'm still climbing and working towards things that are on the objectives and goals list. And I'm bold. I don't doubt that one bit. I mean that, but I might be having some other things that I need to still work on. So is there a equation, Fred, that you think that, can solve for that? Like, okay, you got the boldness. Is there other additives that we need to inject here to help accelerate this receiving of this goal or objective or outcome you're looking for? So, like, talk with me on that one. I'm curious what your thoughts are on there.
Well, it always comes back to it is very much about the journey, because
Mm,
most likely, if you're a really bold person, you're going to die with a bunch of unfinished stuff, because you're just going, I did this, now I want to do that, and hey, it's not about like changing the world, although I want people to, we got big problems, I want bold people trying to solve those problems. But it may be the boldest thing for you is you want to be a great spouse. Like
mm,
that's your dream. It's like, I want to be the best partner I could possibly be in a relationship, and that's what I'm going to work on. And I had an uncle, and he actually journaled this. He said, my kids are important to me. He said, but I'm realizing now that my life forever is going to be about Joan
mm,
when the
mm,
kids are all gone. And he was just an amazing man because of it. He was an amazing grandfather and father, but he was an amazing husband. So it takes boldness to make that choice and say, I don't have to be the greatest success in the world, because I have it. You have to boldly say, I'm going to choose my fulfillment, not the world's fulfillment. I don't have to get rich. I don't have a nice car. I actually don't drive a very nice car. You know why? I don't drive that fast in it. It keeps me from going crazy, right? And just as an aside, I had a girl on another first date, and this was a little while ago. And when I told her what car I drove, she laughed, right? Because it was like a suppressed laugh, but she, in her mind, she measured a man's success by how expensive his car was.
mm.
And I went, like, I've had the expensive cars, I've had the expensive speeding tickets to go with them, and they were great, but I just need some transportation, right? At this
Mm-hmm.
point, and I don't measure myself by the emblem on the hood of my car. I measure myself by how many people's lives I can impact that I care about, and then that are coming to me for help. That's how I measure myself. And so you can be chasing your big dreams. I mean, big dreams are really hard to reach,
Yep.
but it's a heck of a lot more interesting life to chase a big dream and not get there than to chase a tiny dream and get there way ahead of time and go, well, now what? Because you made it so easy, you could get it. It's like, oh, I want to figure out how to make $70,000 a year. Well, that's not going to be that hard.
Right.
You can stay at Starbucks for a while and probably do it. But if you say, like, if I write this book and I say, I want 2 million people to read this book in some form, I may never get there, but all of my actions are that trajectory, and every step along the way is going to be gratifying,
Mm,
because the dream is not an end. It means that the impact was enormous. But if I get 80% of that, 50% of that, it's still great, because it's what I want to be. The most fulfilling thing for me right now is to help people to be as confident and bold as they want to be, so they don't miss opportunities, so that they
sure.
don't have regrets, so that they don't hesitate when it matters most.
Absolutely. And thanks for that clarification there too. I think that for those that listen to this, they'll understand, oh wow, okay, I can synthesize this, and oh wow, okay, wow, I'm a good partner. Oh wow, okay, I have done this. Great. Wow, okay. So it's not necessarily all that other materialistic stuff that people put up on their boards and stuff. And I get that. Like, again, even with what you just said, it's not so much about that. Our sort of our journey is really about experiences. We want to receive the returns from the hard work that we put in, so we can experience the world with the people we love the most and all that great stuff, right? So that's essentially what drives us. But with you and thinking through that as well, did you know through your process before that you wanted to build something special? Did you know when you jumped into the advertising world and wrote all those things, like, where were you in your head? Were you working towards meaning at that point, or was there a big shift after you had accomplished a bunch to where now it's like, okay, well, this is a traditional model, like get a bunch of success by accident, or maybe it was on purpose, and now I want to help the rest of the world do it? And is that sort of, you have to have these sequential steps that eventually allow you to do some of these things? I'm just curious.
For me, it was incremental.
Okay.
We had a business that the laughable thing is, we thought, wouldn't it be great to create a business? This is back in the 80s, right? Where we could make $100,000 a year. And we laugh now because, like, wouldn't it be great to live on $100,000 a year? That would be amazing. But we wanted that place to go to work that was successful, that was fun every day. We cared about what we did every day. And we created an enormous culture. Just the humble brag here. My last week at work, we celebrated the birthdays and the anniversaries every month of the employees. My last week, we celebrated 3 25-year employees and a 10-year employee all in the same month.
Wow.
And that spoke to me about the culture that Gary and I had created that lived on way beyond us. They defended that culture harder than we did. And that came on. We didn't know about culture. We just knew what we wanted. And then we said, well, this can get bigger and we can do more. And then I thought, well, I can write a book about everything I've learned about marketing to dental patients. And I could tell dentists this, and then I could start speaking. And I was a good writer, but I also had good editors working for me. And I was a terrible speaker, but somebody gave me a chance to get on stage, and I got better by sucking, right? Over and over, and doing that most painful thing, watching the video of you sucking yourself sucking, right? And it's like, wow, and it was the same thing when I tried stand-up, because I had a good friend of mine that I met in improv comedy class, and he was a professional stand-up comic. And he said, I know you want to do this. And I was like, yeah, I do. But, and he said, all the things you think you should be afraid of are wrong. And once you're up on stage, you'll figure out what you actually should be afraid of, but you have to do it. And it was absolutely that moment on stage where it's like, I don't have to worry about them laughing. I just have to worry about how confident I am about my material and it not matter to them. And then I have to worry about the stage and just finding ways to get up there. But it was that incremental thing. And it's the same thing. You start with doing 3 minutes. You don't try to do a half-hour set. You don't have a half hour of funny material. I've watched guys think they had a half-hour material. They burned through it in 10 minutes.
It goes way faster.
Yeah. Right, because nobody's laughing, right?
Yeah,
so on to the next thing. There's no pause for laughter because it didn't happen. And they're like, well, that's on, and there's no red light on for them to get off the stage yet. They got nothing. They're all out of stuff. So, all of these things become this process of like, well, what would make me uncomfortable to try, right? And that's sort of become my guide. Is like, if I'm afraid of it, why? Is it because I really want to do it? And that's the question people, if they ask themselves that, it's like, why am I afraid of it? Is it because I really want it and I'm really worried about failing at it? Well, now you're stuck, because now you have to find a way to do it, right? If you're afraid of it because it's dangerous, right? Because this, first, as a side note, this boldness I'm talking about is not about physical boldness. Like, it's not about going crazy and I want to wear a squirrel suit and jump off a cliff. It's like, but you've never skydived. You don't even know how to work a parachute.
That's
right?
foolish.
That's the wrong kind of boldness. That's you'll be dead, right? From that. This is about And this is the human being. This is what stops people is we have the same autonomic reaction to psychological danger as we do to physical danger. The same chemicals go into your body, the same reaction. We're perspiring not because we're hot. It's because in a danger situation, when it mattered to this physical body, you slowed your breathing down. You cooled your body off. You did all of these things. You slowed down your over rational processes because you had to go straight into reactive mode to not die. We do the same thing when we decided something is dangerous psychologically, like meeting somebody new, or going to a party, or asking for a raise, or giving real feedback to somebody that works for us, or asking for real feedback and taking it. It's like I said, nothing like watching the video of yourself. That's the that's takes boldness to say, I'm going to look at how bad I am, honestly, and put myself through it. And I actually didn't do it for a while. I wouldn't look at the stuff. And the first time I did, I was like, this just is a very specific thing. Every time I told a punchline, I grabbed my nose after. And I'm watching the video and I go like, what are you doing? Let go of your nose. What? I had no idea I was doing it. All right. But that's what growth is, right? Is like, be willing to accept that you're not great. And you know what? Nobody cared. This is one of the greatest insights you'll ever have, is that people are not thinking about you anywhere near as much as you think they are. They're thinking about themselves. Mm-hmm. They'll think about you for a few minutes in a very casual way. They'll gather the tiniest bit of information and make a judgment or an assessment or whatever. Why worry about that? Why? Do they know you? Is it accurate? Then why are you taking it on? People say, oh, people are going to laugh if I do that. It's like, do you know these people? What do you care? But this is a gradual process, because it becomes very deep in the programming, the story we tell ourselves, and it creates this hesitation and this lack of confidence.
Yeah, that's I thoroughly enjoy sitting back here and experiencing your delivery and reminding ourselves in real time how effective what it is you're sharing is and can be in that practice. So I go downstairs every day for a couple hours and I sell my books on the Strip, because I live right here on Las Vegas Boulevard in front of the Aria. And so it's very easy for me because my book is titled Las Vegas, with a fun little play on the words. But I'll walk up to people and I always giggle because people I walk up to, some of them will just run from me, like sprint away. I'm like, what are you afraid of? Like, what, I promise I'm not here to bite you. It's like, we're in public. I've got a book in my hand, and
right,
like they're sprinting.
And I don't have an AR-15 in the other hand, right?
Yeah,
just
yeah.
a book
like,
and an
hello.
empty hand.
Right. So what you're saying just reminded me of sort of the reaction there, and when you were going deeper in sort of the autonomic and in the stories and stuff. So a lot of people out there are conditioned that way, and to what you're trying to help with, it's the same thing. It's like we all want, hopefully people to think about what is on the other side of that. So you said in there the why, sort of why you're afraid, if you really want it, and then there's the, like, you really want it, why you want it, but you're afraid to do it. It's like, that's where your crutch is. Do you think it's important to know what you want to do in terms of defining? Because like you said, for you is incremental, but then I've also read a lot of people, it's like asking yourself that question, Fred. It's like, who do you want to be? Where do you want to be? And then obviously there's a filler in there where you got to work into that. But do you think it's important to do that? Or are you of a guy that's experienced it differently, where you just were doing stuff and then eventually you got to this thing where you were good at, you realized it, like, oh, wow, okay, let me do some more. And then you got to another level. So I'm curious on your thoughts there before we wrap up here, because I know I've got to jump off, and I wish we can keep going, but we certainly will have to in the future. But with that last question, then we'll wrap up here and enjoy the rest of our days.
I think it's really important. I have found that it is really important to have a bold vision of who you want to become, what you want to reach in the next 5 years, 10 years, write it down, really write it down, and write it down almost like it's in the present. And you may not reach all of those things, but the process of saying, who do I want to be? I want to be economically free, which mean, and what does that mean? Does that mean $10 million in the bank, or does it mean 200,000 in the bank? And then part two is, what are you doing today to inch yourself down the field? Which is why, one of the tenets of my book is, if you're going to become bolder, you have to do a bold exercise every single day. That's going to build your boldness muscle, and it's going to rewire your brain. And if you get to it, when you get to it, you know what? You don't get to it, right? That's the way we are as human beings. If we make it a habit and a routine, instead of having to decide to do it, we get it done. I want this to become like brushing your teeth. I want you to go, I got to go meet somebody. It's, oh my gosh, it's 10 o'clock and I haven't met anybody yet. I got to go meet a stranger. And you walk into a supermarket, introduce yourself to somebody in the grocery line, so that you go to bed, you're going, yeah, inch myself down the field. Because life is a battle of inches, right? And it's either you stepped up and did something today, or you didn't. And either way, a year goes by and you're either 100 yards down the field, or you haven't started down the field yet. And you get to my age where the years click by like that, and you go like, how could this be another decade, right? So believe me, it just accelerates peculiarly, but it definitely does. You got to get to some part of your dream every day, and you may never get there. It won't matter, because every day will be enriched by the effort, by the flavor of reaching and pushing yourself. If you go easy on yourself, you're your own worst coach, right? At that point, be your best coach. Say, I'm sorry, Fred, you got to do it. I know you're tired. Go meet somebody, right? So
love the football connection there. And I would say, basically the theme of, how I would formulate what you've shared with us here today in relationship to the football connection you just made would be, you got to have the boldness to even go try out for the team, to be able to get on the football field, to make some inches happen, right? You got to go try out, put yourself in position. You might just make the team. You might just make the team and then end up becoming a starter. And you get to suit up. You get to go play some ball on the field. You get to score some touchdowns, earn the victories, right? It's incredible. So that being said, the book, Superbold, right?
Yeah.
That's it. So where is it? Where can we find it? Tell us some more about that whole fun piece. Where can they find you? That's always the best part. We want the connection to continue. So that's your floor now.
Yeah. So fredjoyal.com is my website. The book is available on Amazon. Superbold, from underconfident to bold in 90 days. And so it's a systematic way to develop your confidence and boldness to levels that will surprise yourself, and you will chase your dreams. It is on Amazon and in Kindle, Audible. It's me reading the book, and it's in hardcover. If you were to buy a digital version of it, you can go to my website, fredjoyal.com, and download the exercises, a PDF of the exercises in the journal. Because when you do the exercises, I want you to journal about it and say, what happened? What could I have done better? How do I feel about it? And just add that. And also there's other things in the journal, like write down 10 people whose opinions should matter to you, and then rank them 1 to 10. And what you're going to find is there's probably 3 or 4 people whose opinions really matter to you, like a 9 or 10. And then everybody else is much lower. And then the rest of the planet should be a 0, right? Well, unless you're looking for a Q rating on a TV show and you need everybody to love you and want to watch your station, right. Other people's opinions should not be holding you back. You're holding yourself back because you decided to let their opinions or your fantasy about their opinions. Anyway, I'm starting up again. I can't
No, I
even
love
just,
it.
but yeah, so you can go to my website, learn more about my journey. You can even book, if you want a half-hour conversation with me, like you go like, I can't get out of the house, I don't know what you're talking about, right? Or I'm a CEO and it's like, I am not bold. I started this business, but I know I'm not doing it the way I should be. I'll do a half an hour consultation with anybody. You just book it right there. So
Fantastic.
I'm an all access guy right now. So
I love it. Well, incredibly thankful for you and your team that connected us, and I love doing these things and to be able to hear your insights. So I think you've gone from you're super bold, then you went to super insightful, and now you're the superhero, right? So that's the fun part right there. And so, ladies, I got one last thing for you before we leave, though, because I always ask everybody, you got to tell me what this means to you. Always on the grow. Last and final thing before we finish up here. What does that mean to you, Mr. Fred Joyal?
It means I've got to be working on myself all the time. I've got to be reflective on who I want to be versus who I am, and what I've done versus what I want to do. And I'm not going to bed without being a little bit better somehow. That's how I approach life, because I am always on the grow, and it's incredibly satisfying. And I'm a bold introvert right now. Hopefully I'll be just a straight up super bold guy, but I'm growing in boldness all the time myself. It's a lifelong process, but I tell you, it's a lot more reflexive now and a lot more satisfying now than it ever was.
That's fantastic. And thank you for that. And last thing I got on the football line again is that if you go with Fred, he's gonna take you to a Super Bowl. BOWL, baby. Yeah, man, that's the guy right there. Hey, Fred, I appreciate you, my man. And ladies and gentlemen, if you were listening to this on the audio side of things, the podcast, make sure you head over and you watch Fred talk about this whole journey of his within the Superbold context on the YouTube channel, always on the grow. So, Fred, you're a gent, scholar, much appreciated, my friend. Thank you so much for taking the time today, and we will catch you soon, my man. In the meantime,
Thank
you have
you,
a blessed
Manny.
day. You
Be
got it,
bold,
brother.
everybody. Bye-bye.
There you go.